Honk if you're old enough to make jokes about Trump's Ballroom Blitz. It's the NewsBusters podcast. I'm Tim Graham. With me today, it's the editors, Associate Editor Nick Nitrate-Fondacaro and Managing Editor Curtis Hauk. Guys, CNN Chief Mark Thompson visited the White House. This caused alarms. Oliver Darcy alert. Status reported then that CNN staff were taken aback when Thompson suggests they ease up on the ballroom.
Well, isn't that interesting? You see, the interesting thing about this, Tim, and the thing that I took away from reading it, that Darcy and Natalie Korich,
however we pronounce it.
Yeah, that she's taken that on. She's the one who follows me. Hey, maybe cite us for once. That Thompson told his team, and that they were particularly upset about, not only to tone it down in terms of the coverage, was that he said, people aren't interested in this. They're not as interested in this as you guys are. And I think that is such a huge takeaway for all of this that we're going to talk about here on the show, that the media, unsurprisingly, turned things up to a 12 out of 10 on this, and Thompson merely saying to CNN suits, we might want to dial this back, draws outrage.
Well, I mean, obviously, CNN wants to have the same amount of animus as the ladies of The View.
Right.
So Nick can tell us, I guess they started with this whole idea that Trump's a nihilist, or did she say a nihilist?
Do they know even what that word means?
Exactly. But before I jump into The View, I do want to say, you saw, over the weekend there on X, you saw journalists sort of whining that the public hasn't had the type of outcry that they were hoping for with the ballroom, because a lot of them honestly don't care, as opposed to what the media trying to stoke this narrative of people can't feed themselves, so it's Marie Antoinette, which is another thing that The View has said. It's diving into The View. They compare this to Marie Antoinette and let them eat cake, which, given the inciting of violence that we've seen against Trump and other conservatives, equating him to Marie Antoinette and the French Revolution, Joy has brought that up a couple times, where this sort of reminds her of the French Revolution, which is where all the political leaders were beheaded.
Well, I'm just sort of these are the ladies, they're all millionaires, Alyssa wants to talk about how she flew to London over the weekend. We've got Sunny Hostin saying she hasn't bought her own groceries in years, and then they're going to make Marie Antoinette remarks. I mean,
exactly. Especially when Sunny just bought a new house, and the whole thing is I can't have my chickens now. They did an entire segment that she had to give her chickens away to some ethical farm. They even brought the farmer on to talk about it.
They couldn't just chop them up and eat them,
right?
No, can't do that.
Exactly. So what you were talking about, you had Joy, who apparently learned a new vocabulary word last weekend and was just calling Trump a nihilist, and read a definition where basically a nihilist's only impulse is to destroy, and that's what we're seeing with the White House and the ballroom, which doesn't square well with the idea that they're building something new. He's destroying to build something new. So that is totally just blows up in her face.
But I looked up the word nihilist while I had a free moment.
Yeah.
And that's what he is. He annihilates. Yeah. And this is one of the definitions. A true nihilist would believe in nothing, have no loyalties, and no purpose other than an impulse to destroy. And that is what we are seeing right now in our country.
There's been a lot of that, is that they've had so much freak out about how you're destroying something historic. Yes, to put up another building.
Yeah. For other historical things to happen.
Right, exactly. And the implication here is that, they're trotting out all the usual tropes about fascists and Nazis and authoritarian regimes. I was telling you earlier, how would you describe Philip Kennicott? The architecture...
The art blowhard.
The art blowhard. Yeah, so the Washington Post. He had this fine take on Friday in the print edition. Just read this one sentence here. But as architectural historian and Columbia University professor Barry Bergdahl, well, there you go. There's a dead giveaway of what he's going to say. Pointed out in a speech at the National Building Museum on Wednesday, the public display of the architectural model, the little 3D model, cat's meow there in the White House, has a darker history in fascist and totalitarian politics. in trying to suggest that he's toying with the world and saying that this reminds us of China in the Arab Gulf states where they use slave labor and they just throw things up very quickly. And again, there's no evidence to support any of these things. But as I said earlier, the implication is that it's all violent. It's all trying to turn up the temperature, what The View does on a daily basis. It is not lowering the temperature. It is raising it in our body politic.
I distinctly remember during the pandemic era that the media touted how fast the Chinese were able to put up a hospital in like a couple of weeks. So apparently trying to build things quickly is now fascist.
Right. Yeah. It's how this is what we see so much, guys, with the left, which is, when certain narratives benefit them, they will use it. But those same arguments, if they don't, they're more than willing to cast it aside in favor of intellectual dishonesty.
So I guess they moved on from maybe the fascist angle to the mob boss angle. But then there's just this whole thing. One of the things that just really drives me nuts is how they always want to talk about they're going to cancel the midterms or Trump's never going to leave the White House. And that's why we're now calling the show The View-anon.
Exactly. Basically, they've just been cooking up these like complete conspiracy theories, saying like the ballroom is proof, like the fact that he wants to build this thing that supposedly he really wouldn't be able to use, even though we're still like in the first year, and if they're able to put it up fast enough, he could use it. It's basically this idea that he is building this thing because he plans to be here forever and ever. And they actually showed that one campaign video, or at least that one spoof that he did, where it's like, I'm running in this year and forever, hundreds of years from now. And they showed it with seriousness and said, this is literally his plan to run for president in 4,100.
Yeah.
Like this is this craziness that they're just going to. And I've said this on different media appearances that I've done. When the media makes these claims that he's a Nazi, Republicans are Nazis, or he's Hitler, Republicans are Nazis, ICE is Gestapo, and they're going to steal the elections, and you're telling your followers that we have no legal way to get this guy out of office because he's going to steal the elections or run again, you're leaving them only no choice but to take means into their own hands to save the country from the existential crisis, which is provokes people into violence.
Right.
There's this whole notion, I guess one of the things that was upsetting The View was that Trump had asked for a reimbursement to the amount of $230 million for all of the things that the federal government did to prosecute him, and he wants the money back. The chances of him actually getting the money back don't seem high, but it just, first of all, they don't want to acknowledge that these investigations cost people, that they have to hire lawyers. It's the same way that now John Brennan's like, I have to hire lawyers. It's it's like, hello, that's exactly what you did. So it is. So their whole line was the ballroom was going to end up taxpayer funded if they gave Trump money.
Exactly. And they were even arguing because Trump gave his presidential salary to the White House Historical Association, who partly pays for these renovations. They're saying, oh, that's him using taxpayer money to fund this. He's directly lying. Meanwhile, they don't seem to understand that once he receives it as a salary, it is no longer taxpayer money. It is his money. It's his money to do with what he wants.
It's mind-boggling. So,
well, that goes how the left thinks. That is the government's money. It's not actually money that you earn yourself.
And Joy even scoffs at 400 G's. He goes, "Oh, his pitiful 400 G's to this thing." It's like any 501c3 would love to have 400 grand. Any charity that he gives it away to would love to have that kind of money. Any person in America, average person who's not a multi-millionaire TV star, would love to have that money.
I was just going to say, they're all saying that piddly $400,000 salary, but you're Marie Antoinette.
Exactly.
Okay. So we had lots of conspiracy theories. Curtis, you did something where Bradley Whitford of Happy Gilmore was suggesting that this was all a distraction from Epstein.
Yeah, this one was really bizarre. So, first of all, we need to stop with the liberal infatuation with the West Wing. I mean, like, we are at, 20 years now over since that show ended, and these people are still welcomed on political talk shows like
and
they're royals.
the MSNBC festival with Nicole Wallace interviewing Martin Sheen like he was actually president.
Right, exactly. Well, you know what it's like to be president. Does he though? So he was on, and they asked him about the East Wing, you know, because you've been to the White House many, many times. Like, what do you think about that? And he just talked about how tragic it was. He sounded like it was a family member, a friend, a colleague that had passed away. And he said that this person, you know, Trump is doing this to engage in foreign influence peddling, and as you alluded to, most notably, to distract from the fact that he was best friends, in his own words, with the world's most notorious child rapist. And Dana Bash, her response to all of this, guys, was, Bradley, just you need to tell me how you actually feel about this. You know, always give me your opinions. Like, she was sarcastically, like, fulminating of the fact that this guy is completely unhinged and unfiltered all the time.
It's heartbreaking to me. Got to be in the East Wing because of the West Wing television show during the Clinton administration, Bush administration, and it's heartbreaking to me. It's not surprising to me in this moment that we have a president who is a corrupt authoritarian, in my view, who has a kind of contempt for democratic values and its symbols, and I think he thinks he has the right to destroy the people's house, do some influence peddling along the way, build a ballroom as a monument to distract us from the fact that inflation is up, job creation's down, Congress has shut down the government, and we're suppressing information about the fact that, you know, he was best friends with the most notorious child rapist in history. But this is our house. It is not his to tear down, and I wish the Republicans in Congress would stand up.
Bradley, I wish you wouldn't hold back. I wish you would tell us exactly how you feel.
Bradley Whitford's one of those liberal actors that if you go to his page on NewsBusters, his page after page after page, Nicole Wallace's show, he was a favorite of Chris Matthews back in the day on Hardball. Anytime you need a liberal Hollywood celebrity to say something incendiary, Bradley Whitford is near the top of the list. And so this one was no different whatsoever. And Dana Bash just sat there smiling ear to ear. Again, no fact checkers.
No fact checkers for actors.
No fact checkers for actors or for cable news segments at all. It's not going to end up in Oliver Darcy's newsletter pointing out, oh, he said this thing.
Daniel Dale
without
will
evidence.
not get involved.
Daniel Dale will not get involved.
Exactly.
Scott Jennings was not allowed to participate in any of that.
I was going to ask you, Curtis. Curtis is so busy, he listens to the evening news in his car. You know, I listen to NPR in my car.
Yes.
And we monitor the morning shows. Have we seen anything about any controversy over the monstrosity that is the Obama Presidential Library?
No. No. I mean, as I think folks have realized, this is years behind, way over budget. It is an ugly building. The president was asked about it. Our buddy Reagan Reese wondered what he made of that, and he did his usual. It's terrible. It's just awful. He needs help, I think was the funny line, that this guy needs a lot of help. I don't even know how to describe it, guys. It's like a cylinder kind of thing.
It's almost like one of the terms that I've been seeing people on the right and some on the left who want to actually admit to it on X is that it looks kind of dystopian, that it's literally just this monolith of like concrete and glass that just overviews the entire Chicago landscape.
And like on the side of it is like words from Obama's speeches, but it's not like the museum where the First Amendment was actually on a tap, like giant slab. It's like part of the architecture, so it's like cut out.
Yeah.
And I think I remember when the site was picked, the people in that neighborhood in Chicago were not particularly happy about it. But it was one of those things where the left said, no, this is going to be great, bring jobs, yada, yada, yada,
Well,
economic development.
But a presidential library is always going to do that. You know, it's this to me is more about when you're questioning tacky, gaudy White House ballrooms.
Exactly.
Where's Philip Kennicott on this monstrosity and the architecture? What looks more totalitarian than this missile silo or
you
whatever?
asked my museum studies wife, and this is the difference when you go to the National Gallery, why it's better to go to the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, even 18th century, 19th century. But when you start getting into the new wing, or whatever it was called, the 20th and 21st century, where people just throw like paint at the wall.
Jackson Pollock.
Yeah, they just call it
modern art. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of where we get this, where you get these architectural reviews in the New York Times and the Washington Post that will say things like this, have all of this deeper meaning, and it's amazing and it's elegant and regal. Wow. When you're like, well, this thing looks like a piece of junk.
Yeah, like I hear people like rip Washington D.C. for a lot of the brutalist architecture. This takes brutalist to like almost like boot on your throat kind of nonsense.
Conclusion.
When I've seen a lot of people like different Star Wars fan pages that I go to, they'll show pictures of this and it looks like something the Empire would build.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it just sucks the life out of you.
Oh yeah.
There's no color to it. The whole thing just looks like this.
Is that where Obama plans to like hold out during the Trump kingdom presidency? That's where he's gonna lead from. That's his little above ground bunker.
I don't know. Is he gonna house illegal immigrants there?
All we know is that it just seems like everything the Obamas do is celebrated.
Exactly.
And everything that Trump does is wrong. It's not just wrong, it's authoritarian.
Well, but I would say on this one, what it is telling is I think they are at the same point where we are with this building, this Obama Center. This is going to be known. It won't be known as the official presidential library. It's the Obama Center, because it's supposed to be like a community space and all this other stuff, not just museum space and whatnot. But
we got to make some space for the drag queens.
But the fact that they're not talking about it throughout its construction, I think, is a tell that they would say.
It's not going great.
It's not going great. That is, as we've seen, even with the things like the J. Jones scandal or really any political scandal that is not beneficial to the left. If they're not going to go head first, diving in to defend it, they're just not going to talk about it.
Exactly.
And that's what we've seen with the Obama Center, whereas with the East Wing, we're going to talk it up and we will make you care. We will force you to care about this.
And we saw this with the way that you brought this up with The View, talking about tacky and gaudy. That was literally the only thing that they've been able to really try to attack it on now is how it looks and how they think it's this horrible looking thing. And they got themselves so worked up into this lather that when they were talking about the jewel heist, you had Joy Behar saying the Louvre looks tacky. The most popular, beautiful museum in history that is painted by some of the greatest artists in history is tacky and gaudy. That is how off the reservation they've gone with this.
I wanted to shift to Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yeah.
Now, Curtis, talking about taking one for the team, bought the book.
Here we are, guys. All the Post-it notes
And
here.
like Curtis, there's 43 yellow Post-it notes in there.
Well, let me just start by saying it is the single dumbest political book I've ever read. It is worse than you could possibly imagine. In fact, that was my headline, the review that's up at NewsBusters. It is only 172 pages of text. Okay? Her bio is a full 3 pages. It broke no new ground. And as I said on X when I first started reading it, and I was about 50 pages in, the words that I used were, I called it comical, scatterbrained, sloppy, vapid, and I would also say insipid, because it was so sanctimonious. This was the dedication to it. Not to her daughter, her parents, the president, anybody. This is what she said. To those who refuse to sit quietly, may this book remind you that politics isn't a game played by others, but a compass we each hold in our hands.
Oof.
And so I think the Washington Post, Semaphores Dave Weigel had some tweets about it. I mean, all the book reviews that I've seen, this has been universally panned by the left, not just from a substance standpoint, but as I alluded to, from a content standpoint. The sentence structure, the composition of this book, this is something that, Nick, if you were editing an intern blog, you would just I'd
Start
have some
over.
Start over. I'd have some questions. You could say that this was written by ChatGPT, but that would be an insult to ChatGPT because it's not coherent.
Maybe put some maybe actually like put some passages through an AI checker.
So what you're
Right.
trying to say, Curtis, is that many books are ghost-written, but this actually seems like it's authentically her.
Well, and she was also clearly trying to rush this book out because of the way it came across. It doesn't seem like there's an editor to this. Instead of ICE, she has INS
Oh,
at
wow.
one point.
That's
she
antique.
claims that Joe Biden debated Mitt Romney in 2012 and not Paul Ryan. And so it has some of the typical liberal tropes, including the insinuation, guys, I kid you not, that the press are actually independents, that the press is not liberal. And that one is perhaps the most tiresome thing. And she also says that the press were incredibly hostile to Joe Biden, that they were always looking for opportunities to take him down.
How does that square with the fact that we saw on multiple occasions he'd have these note cards of which journalists to call on and what
Yeah.
their questions are going to be ahead of time?
No. But here's I wanted
not come up.
to get to this. Curtis was mentioning this to me, and that was that CNN's MJ Lee, who was no Jim Acosta, she was very, very angry because she asked her what? She was like, "Do you want to retract something?"
So after the debate, MJ Lee, in one of the first debates in early July after the June 27th debate, she asked Karine, you were at this podium filling in for Jen Psaki during the Jackie Walorski thing. For those who may not recall, that was when President Biden called out to a dead congresswoman
Where's
in
Jackie?
the audience. Where's Jackie? And Karine said, well, he was thinking of her. She was top of mind for him that day or whatever, because it had been her funeral or something like that. And MJ Lee's question was basically, well, in light of the way the president conducted himself during the debate, do you want to retract that statement?
Yeah,
And
that was
that was
incredibly hostile.
That was hostile. It was rude. How dare she ask me about something from 2 years ago? That might as well have been 50 years ago.
we saw that this weekend
Yeah.
on MSNBC, where Elise Jordan actually said, "Do you want to apologize to Robert Hur?"
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's the thing here. There's times in this book where she admits, she's like, well, I'm not perfect and I made plenty of mistakes. But she makes no mention of what said mistakes were.
Yeah.
And so the other thing is she completely doubles down on all of the cheap fakes and all of the other nonsense. She's completely disjointed. She claims at one point Biden had a cold. But no, I actually didn't see him that day of the debate. But I'm saying he had a cold. But then a few pages later, she says, well, he had jet lag from all that world travel.
And a cold.
And a cold. But then she also then says, well, Biden's heart just wasn't in it anymore for the presidency and for this debate because of Hunter Biden's conviction.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
And so
How many excuses?
it was constantly changing. And so she starts to dump on Nancy
Oh,
Pelosi.
let's not leave out the dog ate my Secret Service agent.
Yeah, that one.
doggy.
And the other thing that should be brought up to this is the president. Okay, so imagine if all these things were going on. The president is supposed to be able to juggle all these things as the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
And he is the most powerful person in the world. And he has like all of these streams of information coming, and he has all these things to juggle mentally. And those things were tripping him up.
Yeah, we had this on the weekend. Kamala Harris was interviewed by the BBC, which the NBC Nightly News mangled. But the BBC interviewer was saying to her, don't you think it's weird for you to argue in her book that it was like, no. I thought he was coherent enough to be president. He just wasn't able to run for president.
Right.
That's generally what we do in America.
Right. Well, no, she's trying to say that running for president is harder than actually being president, which...
The BBC reporter was like, huh?
This isn't like boot camp where they're supposed to put you through conditions
Right.
that are worse than probably you're going to face when you're out in the field. Like,
Right, that's not it at all. And she was so sanctimonious, as I mentioned earlier. The one thing that I took away from the end of the book, because the first half is kind of talking about the campaign and her time at the White House podium, and then the second half is her explanation about how she claims to be an independent, which is weird because she says she won't vote third party. She's not interested in the Jill Steins of the world. She's not interested in Elon Musk's America Party. she's not ever going to vote for a Republican because they want children to go hungry and they want trans kids to kill themselves.
Okay.
But she's not always going to vote for a Democrat, but she's not going to sit at home. The CBS interview kind of unraveled this by saying, well, that doesn't really make you an independent if you're only going to vote for one party and you're not going to stay home. This quite doesn't work. And she does try to say, though, get outside your bubble, make friends with other people. But then she gives these anecdotes about how people came up to her that were Republicans on the street and they were very nice to her. And she was like, I couldn't allow myself to feel like that they're basically people because they're just sucking up to me. They're just being nice. They're being disingenuous. Which she, again, is trying to have it both ways. She's trying to say that, we should see each other as human beings. We need to turn down the temperature. But at the same time, don't associate or talk to or be nice to people that are hostile to you, because if those people are nice to you, they're just trying to catch you. They're trying to lull you to sleep.
I just think there's something so bizarre and that I think everybody can smell with this, which was I'm independent and I'm the most slavish defender of Biden, and how everybody didn't serve Biden by letting Kamala run instead.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and as you said, Nick, her View interview was...
Yeah, they had her on, and you had Sarah Haynes, another purported independent, and that's one of the things I always say. She's a pretend independent because I think it's 80% of independents still vote for one party or the other and prefer one over the other. So it's literally just virtue signaling to be oh, I am above the party.
It's a fashion statement.
Exactly, and they even argued in the show, and they agreed that what was bad was that the Democrats had that argument about Biden and Kamala and the future of the ticket in public. So they literally don't like that the public was able to see the Democratic Party infighting and all of this.
Well, that's standard. That's the way the media generally operates. They don't want they love Republican infighting. That's at the top of the news. But when the Democrats are fighting, they don't love it. But they had to do that in 2024.
Well, and the funny and I bring up Sarah Haynes, Nick. She mentions Sarah Haynes specifically as an independent. She says, well, there's a lot of great independents out there like Joe Scarborough and Sarah Haynes. It's Sarah Haynes.
Right.
Sarah will often say there are some Republicans that I would vote for and they would need to meet these standards, which those standards are mostly to the left. And the ones that she does support, she doesn't live in the areas that they're running, right? So she can easily say, I support this guy, but she never actually has to be in a position to vote for them. And that would be one of my questions for her if I was ever on The View, which is, how are you going to say that you're for Republican, and just tell us who you voted for, what their name is, and when the last time that was, just so we can have an idea of what Republican you're going to support.
School board, state rep, anybody.
Yeah, I mean, you made a big point of this last week, and that is the idea that they would say conservatives are scared to appear on The View. When we all know, Ted Cruz told Curtis and me that he requested to be on The View, and they said no.
Because he had been on once, and it did not go well for them.
And then Riley Gaines said on Twitter.
That's the thing. So you had Joy Behar saying the Republicans are quote unquote afraid of us, and Riley Gaines was like, hey, I requested to come on your show. Danielle Alvarez, when she was working for Byron Donalds, hey, we came out on, we requested to come out on the show. Trey Travis showed us an email where they said, hey, we talk about you a lot on the show. Let's have us come on. And then I think they ignored him. Joel Pollack said, the first time I went on, it was pulling teeth, basically. And then when he asked to go on a second time, they refused. And then for those of us who read my report, even us here at NewsBusters and the MRC put in formal requests to be hey, come on, we can talk about your stuff. And we gave them 5 options. Myself, Tim, Curtis, David Bozell, Brittany Hughes, and we have not heard from them since.
Well, I would not expect, the last person on earth they would want on the set is Nick Fondacaro.
Specifically their producer.
Exactly. Yeah. Brian likes to, I'll tag him on some things, on my tweets asking questions, pressing questions, and he'll untag himself. So if you guys ever see a tweet of mine that says @BrianTetta and it's not linkable, that means he saw it and untagged himself from the tweet.
So obviously, Nick, the numbers you've done, I mean, they haven't had an actual conservative or Trump supporter on this year.
So basically, last season they didn't have one on. So far this year, there is a little bit of they had one with a little bit of an asterisk, which was
Cheryl Hines.
RFK Jr.'s wife, and she was on to defend her husband, which kudos, like she should be doing that, and then sort of by extension defending the administration. So she is definitely one that they call who was Democrat, and now she's an independent too, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's so they have one person on to defend the administration, but it's with a little star asterisk because it's.
She's basically was a Hollywood liberal Democrat until
and defending her husband,
and she was selling a book talking about her entire career, which up until 5 minutes ago was largely Curb Your Enthusiasm and other movies and stand-up.
Exactly.
So not exactly political.
So so they basically wanted to make it their closest, best opportunity to grill RFK by proxy.
Yeah, I mean, and it's what you'd expect. But I mean, I'm sure Cheryl Hines was buddies with Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg from before too, so she wouldn't have been scared to appear, and they wouldn't have been scared to have her on. But the reality is, as we all know and as we've documented, they don't want any conservatives on this show, and that's especially since the age of Trump.
Exactly. They don't want
upsetting.
anybody that can show them their receipts about the stuff they said, which is one of the biggest reasons they probably rejected Ted Cruz, because he literally pulled out a sheet of paper with their quotes and things that they've said on it, because they don't want somebody to bring the receipts. And we know that they know who we are because they've whined on their podcast about my study of their legal notes, which we're also keeping track of them this season. And just a hint at the results so far, they're kind of lacking.
They're not doing it now.
They're not doing great. Alyssa's blocked both of us.
So, this is one of those things people would say, well, why are you watching The View? Everybody knows it's terrible. No. We have to tell you just how terrible it is.
Because it's a news product from ABC News.
It's sad. It's gone a long way from where Barbara Walters started, and it wasn't great at the start. But for all of your news about The View, about the White House briefing, everything else in the news, you got to come to NewsBusters once, twice, 24 times a day. Thanks for listening and watching.